Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Martin Traubner. I'm the founder and CEO of VetBooks, and excited this afternoon to host my friends Tom Seco and CJ Burnett from Florida Veterinary Advisors in our series of five reasons why. Today is five reasons why it's never too soon to be thinking about exit. Um, uh, Before we get rolling here, let me throw the floor over to Tom and CJ quickly to do a quick introduction. Tom, you want to go first?
Perfect. Yeah, I guess I'll do the extended version, quick introduction, just totally kidding here. I'm Tom Seco, one of the co-founders of Florida Veterinary Advisors. We're out of Tampa, Florida. And, we've been working within veterinary medicine since, was it 2014? Got a lot of great resources and things that we have that are available if you want to check them out, like our podcast, book. I'll let CJ talk on some of the other things here as well, but we are actively just providing a different way of thinking to make finances easy so you can spend time doing other things. So if you're wanting to learn more, that's what we're all about. We want to teach you.
Having that mission and making things easy is having that be our focus, especially for business owners. We are certified exit planners. So our essentially bread and butter is working with business owners who are trying to grow, start businesses, grow, exit their business, figure out how do you build personal wealth while you're also building business wealth and coordinating the two.
And VetBooks, as many of you know, who are our friends and clients, is industry leader in providing bookkeeping and clean financials to veterinary practices exclusively. And it feels a little awkward to be the way feels a little awkward to be offering our clients a session on exit because we love our clients. We want them to stick with us for a really long time. But when they do ultimately decide to transition out of practice, boy, there's nothing better than having a plan. So, as is our usual practice, this will be a fairly casual conversation. We'll pace through five reasons why it's never too soon to be thinking about exit. And please feel free to use the Q&A function. We've got uh, Caitlin, who appears as marketing at VetBooks, monitoring the chat and leaving room for questions. And we will try, as usual, to end a few minutes early. I have said that every time I've hosted a webinar, by the way, guys, and I always end up running over, and we end up. But we'll see. We'll try again at the rigor. So here's what we're going to cover today: the five reasons why it's never too soon to be thinking about exit. Early exit planning improves current decision making and long-term outcomes. So we'll spend some time talking about that. Helps avoid common financial pitfalls. Aligns personal financial goals with business performance. Leads to building a practice that's attractive, and identifies elements that affect exit success. We'll pace through those. Let's start with the first one, that early exit planning improves current decision making and long-term outcomes. I've shared with you, Tom and CJ, that I have this hypothesis that your business should always be ready for sale. I had this boss very, very early in my career used to say, my house is always for sale, my business is always for sale. Like I've always got everything ready. You might not like the price, but like I've got a plan in place around what it would take for me to exit. And I've tried to keep that in mind over the years, but it's super hard. Your thoughts, Tom, on having creating options at an early stage?
We always talk about exit planning is something you should be considering even before you're a business owner. And think about it as like the longer term planning for your finance. Like so many people get caught up into a business. It seemed like it was the thing they should have done. They're practicing for someone for a while. Here they are. they have a business, 30 years it disappears, and then all of a sudden they're like, what's next? What do I do? And they don't know how they're going to get out of it. And I mean, the past generation, even that we've noticed, they're at this phase of life. If they caught the investment groups at a good clip and they had multiple doctors and they weren't very dependent on the business didn't depend on them, they're fine. But then most people, they don't know how they want to get out, or maybe they do and they wait too long to figure that out. There were the options that they wanted to have, like selling it to another employee or another veterinarian, wanting to maintain a certain lifestyle when they got out of the ownership of their business. Usually all of that is like an afterthought. And the sooner you can think about it, the better it is to be able to position yourself business wise and personally to be able to tackle those things.
Yeah, I would say easily a couple of times a year we get on a call with a prospect for the bookkeeping, and I'm like, well, what motivates you reaching out to us today to talk about your bookkeeping? So, well, I want to sell my practice. Okay, great. What's your timeline to do that? 6 months, maybe, right? Their books are a mess. They haven't done any planning. They've got nothing in place, but now all of a sudden they want to sell. CJ, your thoughts?
Zig Ziglar one time said, if you aim for nothing, you'll hit it every time. And I think
Nice.
most people, when it comes to their business, they don't know what they're aiming for long term. They know they own a business, that they've got to show up, that they've got to hire employees, they've got to do payroll, they've got to file their tax returns. And a lot of it is really knowing what we need to do today. But very few of us are able to take the time to think about, like, what is my exit? What is my goal here? What is the end result? And even if I'm going to own this business for 20 or 30 years, what is the valuation of this business going to need to be for me to sell it? Kind of like what you're saying is like, my business is always for sale. Well, you may not like the price. Well, how do you know what the price needs to be? How
Yeah,
does somebody know what that valuation is that their own personal financial plan requires for them to get? And this is a lot of times why people never sell, is because they get to 60, 65 years old. They don't know what their practice is valued, let alone what they need it to be valued at. And so if you start thinking of these when you're in your 30s or your 40s, or the day after you start owning a business, and you start putting a target in mind, and now you've got this number, this future date, this idea of what you need to get to in order to fully exit. And then you take that number and back your way into today. And now you get this idea, a real clear understanding of what do you need to do today to get there. But then what's funny about that is, Martin, when we get to that number, that what they need to do today,
yeah,
sometimes if they do what they need to do, or if they can adjust a few small things in their lifestyle or in their life in order to plan, oftentimes they can hit that number way sooner than they thought. And
yeah,
most of the
yeah.
people, when they plan properly, they can move retirement up 10 or even 20 years with proper planning. Or
Oh, come
alternatively,
on, hold on. 20 years, you think?
if you look at valuations and you think about, if someone saves money outside their business consistently and they
Yeah,
build up a personal balance sheet that's strong enough to reproduce their income,
yeah.
it's as they do that, they're reducing the reliance of the valuation of their business that they need to sell at.
That's a super interesting point.
So you
Super
can,
interesting
so
point.
I've got somebody right now, yeah, like they've moved it up like a good 15, almost 20 years, because what they thought was possible, or what they thought was not possible, is actually possible. They just needed to know what the target was. What did they need to do in order to actually get there?
I want to make sure. I want to keep moving through some of this stuff. I want to make sure. Oh, maybe we'll stop for a minute here, because
Mhm.
so I was like, I want to come back to this point, but maybe let's not come back to it. Let's actually address it right here. Um, I would have thought that if you advanced your retirement goals by 15 years, you might move the goalposts. Be like, look, all I want to do is be able to drive my Volvo and, and put my kids through college and travel once a year. And then you're like, you could retire 15 years early. Like, okay, now I want to drive, you know, I want to drive a Beamer. I want to have a vacation property and I want to, help my kids with down payments. Like, does
And
that happen? I
then,
guess it does.
yeah, the nice thing is having the option to do that.
Right, right.
As opposed to, there are some clients that, yeah, we have one client I'm even thinking of right now. We moved that plan up 10 years, but now he's going and buying a $2.5 million property on the water, and he's looking at homes right now, and he's going to have another property on the water. So like he moved his goalposts, right?
Yeah.
Like he went from I'll never own that, I'm going to just give up that dream to maybe
Right.
now that I know that I can move it up. And so, and as he's building out the leadership team in his own business, he's noticing that even his business, like his business valuation 2 years ago when we first did it, it was half of what it is today because he's been able to do some things over the last couple of years. He's acquired a little bit more. He's acquired a couple other businesses as well, and now he's at a size where he never, like he told me yesterday. I was on the phone with him for like a good amount of time during lunch. He's like, I never thought this was possible. Like I can't, and I think his words was, I have to stop thinking the way that I used to think, because even going and buying this home sounds like an impossibility to me still, but I actually could do it. I'm like, yeah, yeah, financially, like you can, and you're actually kind of safe doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes to like it says on the slide. The sooner you start, the more options you have. That's great. CJ, one last thing before we move on to reason number two. When we were preparing for this talk, you sent a small chill up my spine uh, because you referenced unplanned exit versus planned exit, and I thought we might touch on that really quickly here. Like I was all like, "Oh, you guys are exit planners. This is about planning. You got to plan. It's a plan. Your planned exit. Your planned exit." And then you were like, "What about unplanned exit?" I was like, "Oh." I never thought about that. Maybe you want to share uh, for uh, for people attending and watching what that.
There really are three ways to exit, technically four, but the fourth one is never really wanted. The first way you can exit is sell to insiders. The second way is to sell to outsiders. The third way is to basically own the practice until you die. When none of us control when we die, so that can oftentimes sometimes be an involuntary exit, right?
Yeah.
We had a financial advisor in our office die in November.
Ooh,
We had another guy, another financial advisor that we were friends with up in Mobile, Alabama. He just died 3 weeks ago. Those two advisors didn't choose to exit their practice, right?
yeah.
It was involuntary. Now, sometimes you can plan to own the business till you die, meaning like you're going to own it till you're 120 years old. No matter how long you live, you're just going to own the thing forever. That's fine too. That's an option. The fourth option is you basically close the doors. And what's sad is oftentimes people involuntarily, like they get to 65, 70 years old, there's no buying prospects. A corporation doesn't want to buy them because they held onto that business 10 years longer than they should have. And at the time, in the time that they needed to sell, they weren't ready to sell emotionally. Because we talk about planning, but we don't just mean financial. We mean mentally and emotionally. Selling your business is a massively emotional thing. And
It is.
so when we think about selling, it's not about what am I going to do? It's not about getting to retirement or getting to the business sale. It's also knowing what am I going to do after. It's not about getting to retirement, it's about getting through retirement and not knowing, not thinking what am I retiring from, but rather what am I retiring to? And so
Mhm.
there's a dreaming aspect of what else is there in your life that you want to do beyond owning this business. And if is it consulting, maybe you consult with, for you exit your business and then you can go consult with others and you kind of live vicariously through younger people who are building their business. Guess what? I'm doing that now. I'm 38 years old. Other advisors work with Tom and I because they're trying to figure out how they can make their business work, so we're helping them with their business and we're coaching them. And so
Amazing.
there's so many parts of this. The involuntary piece of potentially exiting, disability, death, loss of license. Maybe there's even partnerships where you might have a business partner that you're in business with. And if you have your exit plan kind of like established in your head, but they don't, well, and then they die or they get disabled or they get divorced or they have a disagreement with you, right? Oddly enough, the four I just mentioned all have a D at the beginning, if you notice, right?
Yes.
So more often than not, especially when it comes to even partnerships, we see a lot of them where they have operating agreements that are just woefully underdone, right? There's a whole lot of things that are not addressed as far as how
Yeah.
can you make it so that your involuntary exit of the business happens the way that you would wish it would happen financially, even though it may not happen the way you want it emotionally.
Four Ds: death, disability, divorce, and
It was death, disability, divorce, and Wow,
Put you
I
on the
can't
spot.
remember.
I put you on
Yeah,
the spot.
Disagreement.
I'm sorry.
there we go.
Or disagreement. Thank
Disagreement.
you. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Yeah. Um, okay. That's, not a pleasant, those are not pleasant things to think about, and yet super important. Let's press forward and talk about uh, the reason number two, that early exit planning helps avoid common financial pitfalls. Um, and so we'll spend a little bit of time on sort of having the practice in good financial shape. Obviously, this is a passion of mine, right? This is why I started VetBooks, was um, because when I think about any of the success that I've had in business, it's always because we had tight financial control over the business. We knew our numbers, cold, you can make a plan when you know your numbers. It's super valuable. But a key part of that is once you have your numbers, benchmarks, KPIs, and financial reports and valuation. Tom, do you want to spend a little bit of time? I know you guys are not valuators, and we are going to do one of these sessions with valuation. But do you want to take us through sort of valuation and some KPIs that you look at when you help people start thinking about about exit planning?
To peel it out a little bit more, like, getting in the weeds is important, Martin, for sure. When we want to make from a value, most of the time when people are even thinking about what their business is even worth is when they're ready to exit. And that could be, I'm ready to retire, which is where most people land. On your note, I think just to throw in here, it's getting the books clean, making sure, on the flip side of it, their tax returns are showing healthy profits. All those things are very important in order to be able to get the most out of the business. And usually, if you're looking to sell to anyone, with a few years of books should be very, very current. From everything from your profit loss statements on a month by month basis, on a year by year, your tax returns. The biggest contradictory thing that we always see out there when we talk with people, that they're always trying to find ways to minimize their tax obligations. And taxes, are kind of like it's a yin and yang thing that happens here, where it's like we all want to pay our fair share of taxes. Well, I think some people don't want to pay any taxes, which is, got to be careful on that one. I know the IRS tends, in the US at least, they're cracking down more and doing more audits these days.
Yeah.
But when you think about a value, your value is fully dependent on what the business does in profits. And on the other flip side of it, those when we talk about a business, it's more sellable when you actually are not having to be the one doing all the work. And where the businesses where a lot of people get this, I don't want to say it's an illusion, but it's like they're the ones doing all the work. They've been generating all the revenue. And think about it from a risk standpoint of anyone buying the business. All of a sudden, if you're not part of that equation anymore, well, what's really left there? Well, there's the goodwill of the business. So like hopefully it's been around for a while. It's done good for all the people that are out there. And then on the flip side, though, it's, what happens if people leave? What if medicine's not practiced the way it was? Let's just say the operations and processes. We've actually had people where they've been, and this is a very common thread, and I don't know if this is the most appropriate place to put this or not, but corporations, there are a bunch that we've noticed that they buy these businesses within a year or two. The culture is different, the processes are different, the people are different. We've had some people where they've actually had the buying groups peel back out of that partnership, and the business has been run into the ground because of those factors. So, when we think about the value in planning in our world, it's, if you can really make sure you're showing healthy profits, everything, depending on the business, AHA has certain numbers there. Your business, if it's doing very low profit margins, meaning the profits versus revenue is not very high, you're considered a no low practice. Like, you don't have much value to you. There are things like add backs, and like if you don't have clean books, it's very hard to negotiate what that number would be if you are using the business kind of like as your personal piggy bank or expensing certain things through it.
Yeah,
But then
that's right.
being able to,
Kids guitar lessons and
yes, kids' guitar lessons, or maybe it's my auto insurance that I'm paying for personally, or my trips that I go on, or I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
those might be. But when you think about the value, it's, on our side of it is like when you're planning, the closer you are to retirement with little assets you've gathered over time, you're very dependent on the sale of your business. So like with CJ, just echoing what he was mentioning earlier, when you aren't planning to build up using the profits and the money from the business to build up personal wealth along the way, and most of your plan is very dependent on the business, it's very important to know like what that value will be in the future and how do you enhance it as much as possible. But on the flip side, if you are trying to plan over time, it's always good to have like a somewhat of a gauge to know what it's worth, to see what part of the puzzle it fits, instead of just one day all of a sudden, like you're mentioning, Martin, I just want to
yeah,
drive around in a Volvo and
yeah.
just hang out all day long.
Please, no hate mail from Volvo drivers, please. I meant, I mentioned the Volvo because I happen to be visiting my parents right now, and I was driving their Volvo this morning, and the battery died. So I'm
Oh boy.
like ah. Um, uh, how often should we be valuing the business?
I'm under belief every at least once a year you should at least have a gauge of what it
Once a,
is.
oh, get a gauge, but like a proper valuation.
So
Proper value.
there's tiers of valuations, right? There's valuations that you pay for because you need a valuation to uphold, say, an IRS challenge within a
Yeah,
succession plan. And then there's the valuation to just get a rough and dirty. We're talking about the rough and dirty valuation. We're talking about
yeah,
maybe a CVA that, because once you pay someone to do a valuation to start, oftentimes they'll just charge you a small fee ongoing to either revamp it every 1 to 3 years, really.
yeah,
So, you might pay them, say, $6,000, $10,000 up front, but then every couple years you pay them a couple grand and then they update it.
yeah, yeah. I've always heard the sort of 2 to 3 years to get it sort of updated and just sort of get a sense, sort of like where are we
There,
realistically?
there, there are a couple of times where we've met people where they had a valuation and they paid like a lot of money up front, but then they pay like $500 a year to get an updated amount. So it's almost like like there's like two or three clients that we have. It's not a lot, but I just remember
Uh,
that I think that stands out to Tom and I. We go, like if we can kind of normalize that, it might help. Because I think that if you can think of people who do valuations, a lot of the times it's kind of hard in the valuation space because a lot of the times the people that are doing valuations really want to be the ones that sell your business, right? They might be
right.
brokers or M&A advisors, right? And so it gets a little hairy because you pay them to do a valuation and then they're like trying to get you to sell and you're like, I'm not ready to sell. So just gotta be aware of the people that do valuations. Like that's not like usually that's not the only thing they're doing. They're doing
Yeah,
that plus they're also trying
brokerage.
to, yeah, and they get a piece of the sale whenever you sell. So
Right.
they're way more motivated to have you sell. And so when you engage with a certified valuation analyst or somebody that does those things that specializes in it, just spend a little extra time to make sure you understand their business model. And so you're not paying because we've seen people pay like $20,000 for a
Yeah,
really cheesy printout of a biz equity report online, which like Tom and I think we pay like $250 a year to have biz equity. I mean, it's not biz equity is not a lot of money to just subscribe to. And yet we've seen firms
what is that?
biz equity. You can go to
Yeah,
bizequity.com. It's just a valuation tool that you can go online and get. And it's fairly basic. It's not phenomenal, but it can do like a rough and dirty. It takes a few different factors about the area that you're in, most recent sales that have happened in your area, and it kind of does an algorithm type thing. It's not phenomenal, okay? So I'm not supporting it in any way. It's just
yeah.
I've
Disclaimers here,
seen
enter disclaimer here, enter disclaimer here, enter disclaimer here.
I'm not supporting it. I've just seen it where it's a $250 a year platform that someone got charged $20,000, and it's like that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
valuation is just not a good one. So make sure you're doing
Yeah.
your due diligence on
On
valuations.
on the note of the valuation, typically when you really want to get like a thorough one done is either if like you're trying to bring on a partner or you're looking to sell the business. Like that's when
Yeah.
there's like the reports that are done that are like could be 20 to 50 to 60 pages long and they're going to cost you some money. But just we should all know to some degree of what the business is worth ongoing. And it's, of course, it's funny what you mentioned yesterday, Martin, around my house is always for sale. It's just you probably don't want to pay for it. So
Yeah,
there's always
you
this.
might not like the price, but I have my price.
Correct. Well, there's the value versus the price that's there, and it's just like having a good idea of what it's worth all the time. So then what, like if you are a person who's very ambitious, there are people who want to grow up more their business more, and they want to have multiple veterinarians. They don't really want to practice as much in it. They want to open multiple locations. If you're a
Yeah,
doctor that's a solo doctor, just practicing and just doing your thing, and nothing's really changing, you're increasing your prices every so often. It's going to be very simple to know what that is. But if your business goes from 2 million to 4 million in revenue, and then profits are adjusting and more expenses come on, and those are things that just pay attention to know is like, okay, what piece does that fit now? Like, how does that work?
got it. Got it. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna press us for. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
CJ. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna press us forward and talk a little bit about aligning personal and business financial goals, because that seems like a good. Uh, it seems like aligning personal and business financial goals um, is the same kind of conversation about like what kind of practice do you want to have? Do you want to have a 3, 4, 5 doctor practice, or do you want to be a solo practitioner doing your own thing? Um, the choice is yours. It's 100%. But your personal and business financial goals end up being aligned as well. Um, so uh, I'm going to make a self-serving comment here. Um, uh, so when we talk with clients, we talk a lot about having financial control of your business so that you can be a profitable business, build equity, build personal wealth. And we talked a little bit when we were preparing for this talk, um, how there's this sort of relationship. So I kind of find myself sort of downstream, right? It's like I'm just going to faithfully report what is happening in the business. And then your accountant is going to do profit maximization and tax minimization strategies. And then kind of comes to you guys to be able to be like, okay, we've got clean set of books, we've got profit maximization or some focus on profit maximization and tax minimization strategies. But then like, what am I using my business for, right? Like how do I build personal wealth around my business? Can you talk about that sort of that relationship and your, first of all, do I have a good characterization of it? Because I just laid it out as like, de facto, this is how it is. I should probably be open to the possibility that I'm wrong. Um, and so talk about like sort of does that relationship exist? And if so, you want to sort of dive deeper into your piece of it, the using the business for personal financial goals.
Well, I think going back to, I'll take this for a second and then CJ can jump in here as well. Going back to the earlier part of this conversation, that there are so many people who become business owners. And I mean, we hear this day in and day out, almost every day, like the amount of financial acumen that I have about running a business. And, one person I'll give a shout out here to Peter Weinstein. I love that he actually
Yeah,
met Michael Gerber and wrote E-Myth Veterinarian. I
yeah,
remember when CJ and I stumbled across that book, I don't know, many years ago. We've been working together for over 10 years now. And just really thinking about that there's a technician, a manager, and an entrepreneur that are in a business. And most people who are in the veterinary medicine were a technician. They were practicing the medicine, and then they go and open a business and they try to be a technician, manager, and an entrepreneur all at the same time. And some of them might have those
yeah,
skills
yeah.
and
Just for clarity, when you talk about a technician, you're not talking about like an RVT or an
no,
LVT.
no,
You're talking
absolutely
about
not.
like a technical person, like with
So there's
technical
some
skill.
person doing the work. So like,
Yeah,
hey, I
that's right.
need surgery on this animal. Like, well, you're qualified. You know how to do it. So you're going to go do it. I
Yeah,
need to go meet with these
yeah,
people to go talk through the services and everything that's happening. The manager is more of like the operations, keeping the business moving on a day-to-day motion. And then the
that's right.
entrepreneur is more of like focused on the future, more of like, well, where are we going with this? What new opportunities are we trying to expand the business more? And trying to play all three prongs. And the biggest issue is that being in the mindset of, I wouldn't necessarily say the mindset, but just more of being the technician, now being an owner. Some people maybe push them. Maybe they got so tired of working for someone else. I mean, I had a conversation while at the conference this past weekend over at AVMA, and someone I know is working for another practice, and he just doesn't like the way that the lady runs it. He doesn't like the way that she interacts and how she cares about the business. It doesn't have a lot of values and things to it. So he's actually looking to venture off to start his own business now. And, is he a business savvy person? From my conversations, it seems like he doesn't have a lot of knowledge around that, but it's like something's pushing him. And now all of a sudden, it's think about it, just coming back to the personal business side of things. People jump into business, they start making money. I think veterinary medicine, from what I remember, opening a practice has the least amount of default out of most businesses that are out there. So you open the doors, it starts making money, it's cash flowing, and then you start doing really well. And then it's like, okay, I pay myself a salary. Maybe I take some money out in distributions, sporadic amounts that I pull out. And there really is no connection of like, okay, what purpose is my business serving me personally too? And that's where it comes down to like the sale later of I'm going to sell it and then I'm going to cash it out. And then whatever I get for it is now, hopefully I'm not driving around in the Volvo. I'm no hate to Volvos or anything, but it's like, maybe I'm
We got to stop on the Volvo. We turned into the Volvo hater episode of 5 reasons.
let's go to Hyundai. You're driving around a Hyundai instead of, you maybe want to drive around in a Cadillac instead. I don't know. But it's like your lifestyle was a certain way, and all of a sudden it's having to default in another direction. So it's like without knowing the clarity, I mean, and CJ can touch more on this as well, is like if we don't have a direct connection between what purpose the business serves for us personally, we're going to keep doing and making decisions of putting money back into the business without knowing how it increases the value. We're going to keep taking money, and we have some conversation with people and they go on vacations all the time, or they're just wiping out their mortgage and they have no sense of idea of where do they each play together? Like, how do I enrich the other one? And ultimately, we're after the choice to not have to work forever. So how do we position ourselves with the least amount of risk to be able to do that?
Yeah, like how do I build a great business that is profitable, manages and maintains my lifestyle today, but also provides for the future.
And I think 100%, it's a combination of profit prioritization, right? Allocating cash flow that's generated, and then also at the same time maintaining that all parties that are involved in a business are being rewarded, meaning you're serving the community. The community is getting the benefit of your service. The employees are getting the benefit of employment. The owner is getting the benefit of the profits. And so so when you think of like just aligning personal and business financial goals, it's not that my business needs to exist for me and I don't exist for my business. We exist together. And so a prioritization of profits, meaning like, okay, there's the revenues that get generated from the community, right? They're thank you dollars essentially because you provided a service and they're thanking you with the dollars. And then you're utilizing those dollars to serve people internally, and then the profits should be then turned around, and then you as the owner can say, okay, do I reinvest these profits or do I put them on my own balance sheet, right? Do I and this all is like, there's no wrong answer here. It's just a matter of mentally and in actuality with the money that you make. Are you a veterinarian first and then a business owner second? Or are you a business owner first and a veterinarian second? Right? And I
Oh,
think a lot
I
of,
gotta, I gotta stop you right there because that's like, you just like fired off light bulbs for me. That is like one of the key questions I think that I've never heard uh, framed like that. But I think helping our clients and friends who own veterinary practices decide whether they are veterinarians first and practice owners second, or practice owners first and veterinarians second, is like I'm going to start asking all of my friends and all of our clients that question. And there presumably there's no wrong answer.
no, they're all right answers. It's just a matter of what do you want? And then you align what you want personally to then be reflected in the business. And so what ends up happening is you don't have to grow and have multiple locations and have this grandiose valuation if you're just going to go to work, earn your income, save some money on your personal balance sheet, make sure everyone's happy, have some employees, live a great life. And at the end of it, maybe you sell for a nominal amount of valuation because you don't need a lot to live. And that's what a good life to you is. You don't have to be, a millionaire in order to be successful. You should do whatever it is that feeds what you're looking to do.
I can already hear some of my friends, and I did sneak a look at some of the guests to this, the participants on the participant list. I can already hear some of them saying like, "Please don't make me choose. Can't I be both a practice owner and a veterinarian?"
It's
Yes.
funny because yes, 100%. And I would say if anyone said, well, I want to be both at the same time, I would say then you want your values to be expressed explicitly in the business and in your personal life. And I hope your calendar says that you want to be a business owner and a veterinarian at the same time, right? Like our calendar should reflect our priorities. So if you're
Fascinating.
always in the clinic and you're never home with your family, like then that's telling me something the opposite of maybe like because if you're a business, what a real business, let's define business owner. To me, a business owner is someone who doesn't show up ever and makes an income from the business. Like a business owner is
Oh,
someone who works on the
mhm.
business but doesn't ever really have to show up, right? Because the business works without them. Think of like the extremes that you can imagine are like, the Mark Cubans of the world or like those kinds of people. Like they own businesses, but they're not showing up every day in those businesses, right? So there's a mentality.
They're not the technicians anyway. They may be thinking about the business, working on the business, making
They're
connections
not
for
in
the
it.
business, but they're not the technicians.
They're not right.
They're not tactically, like if they're not there at 8 a.m. when the doors open, that's not a problem.
And veterinarians, like when you have a veterinarian working in a vet practice, like you need to have veterinarians in a vet practice. There's no way you have a vet practice without a veterinarian, right? So
Yes,
there's conflicting priorities there in the calendar, in the mentality, right? And so you just have to make sure that you have a right balance if you want to be both at the same time.
got it. Okay, we've uh we've crushed we've crushed this topic, and I note that we've got 18 minutes left for two more topics. So let's uh
We got
let's
this.
press forward and talk a little bit about building a transfer ready practice. Early exit planning leads to building a practice that's attractive. Um, so here we're thinking about systems, team structure, leadership transitions, culture, SOPs, succession paths. In the work that you guys do with practices, can you share what a great practice looks like versus a less good looking practice? And for our purposes, let's call a great looking practice one that's ready for transition, ready for sale, and one where the owner has good control over the levers that affect a successful exit, and a less good looking practice sort of somewhere below that. So, like, maybe tell us two stories. One of like, you meet a practice, you're like, okay, you guys barely need us. You've got everything put in places, all the pieces in place, and one where it's like, oh boy, this is going to be work.
Why don't you take it,
So
CJ?
yeah, that's fine. I was kind of waiting for your cue. Um, so I'd say on the extreme is a practice where again the owner doesn't go in ever and they're making income, right? Because if you buy a business, you buy what you're doing is you're buying future profits. So
Right.
if you don't if the business doesn't show profits, then there most likely isn't any value unless one thing that we do have to mention is value is in the eye of the beholder. The person buying the business, they have a value, you have a value. Everyone has their own price in their mind. The actual value of the business is completely subjective, right? So sometimes people want really concrete numbers. It's like really hard to get concrete numbers unless, you look at like, what are they thinking? So a good practice is one that doesn't rely on the owner. Therefore, there are veterinarians working. The owner could go to Aruba for 6 months, maybe even a couple years and come back and the business is still running. If someone quits, then there was somebody in the business that hired a new person. If a veterinarian became disabled and couldn't work anymore, then there was someone that found another veterinarian that to hire. If whatever thing comes its way within that business, it's got enough processes, people in order to accommodate for the changes of whatever happens in the community and around with the people that effectuate the business, that business will continue running without the owner. That is a transfer ready business. All right. So that's on the one extreme. On the other extreme is the business is entirely reliant on the owner. If the owner doesn't show up, no one else really cares. And if the owner goes away for a week, the thing falls apart.
Yeah, you run out of paper towel or toilet paper, and people are looking at the owner going like, "How did you let that happen?"
Yep. I was on the note, like when you mentioned that Martin with the SOPs and KPIs and all these other different things, culturally, I think it really matters from a business to where are there, is there an action? Because every business has a culture. Let's just point that out there. Every business has a culture. Is it a culture that it promotes growth and involvement and, people on the team work really well and of course, this is where like when someone buys a business, the culture can change if it is all of a sudden like this group comes in, buys it, and I've heard this time and time again. Yeah, the business isn't gonna, the culture is not gonna change. It's gonna be the same. And I think I've heard out of like 10 out of 10 times that I've talked with people and
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, the business has changed. It's
yeah,
not the
yeah,
same. And I'm
yeah,
like, so whenever anyone says that, I'm like, they're just telling you that to make you feel good right now. But there's absolute truth that it's going to change. Like it's not the same people
yeah,
anymore running the show. So, culturally, it's like what are people stepping into? And does this business have values? Does it have principles? Does it have a vision to what it's all about? Do people have clear expectations of their roles and their responsibilities? And do people work together in a team very well or not? When it's like if everyone's kind of working independently and there's not a very good vibe going on in the business, that has a lot of bad impacts to it. I will say on the owner side of it all, what, being able to on the financials, being able to pull a lot of the business or personal expenses out of it. I mean, you can add back stuff to the valuation, but trying to remove as much of that from the business as possible. So it really gives a true sense of what it's worth.
yeah.
And then just making,
Can we stop and dwell on that point for just a minute?
yeah, let's talk about
I
it.
just want to make sure that I just want to make sure I'm tracking. This is what I refer to as running a clean business, right? It's like take all of the look, you want to put your kids guitar lessons and personal expenses through the business. You can, but to CJ's point about, buying future profits, right?
Hmm.
If that the guitar lessons decrease profit and therefore decrease the overall valuation and are going to be added back because when you transfer the business, the new owner is not paying for your kids' guitar lessons. Um, so this idea, that's what we're talking about here, right? The idea of running just a
Yes.
clean business. Take all the,
Well,
I'm going to refer to it as noise and nonsense. Take the noise and nonsense out. That's, that's got a little bit of a value judgment put into it, which I try not to be too Judgerson about it, but
well, the thing
it's
is with
like
the
just
the
run it
business,
clean.
the noise and nonsense that you're mentioning in here, uh, is that most of the time, if they're working with someone like your firm or a place that actually does keep like a tight ship and things are documented and recorded properly, then it's very easy to be able to like, yes, that's an add back. That's something
Add
that we
back,
can put
right,
back into the profitability of the business.
right.
But there are times with a business where it's like, depending on how clean and how those things are recorded, it can be it's kind of like a I'm taking your word for it thing and they might fight you on it. So if you're trying to negotiate the highest value for your business, that's where like the clean financials and things come back here where it's like if you remove all of that in the first place and just make it part of your personal life, it also will help you understand like how much would you even need to live on personally for when you do sell your business because well if I have expenses going through my business that I'm not accounting for that I'm going to need to pay for ongoing afterwards,
Yeah.
it kind of plays hand in hand here.
Feels
We
like having
we've
kids on the payroll and stuff like that.
Well, we find that a lot. Like a lot of the times people are like, "Yeah, I don't know, like I want to retire next year." And I'm like, "Wait, what does your lifestyle require?" And they're like, "I don't know."
Right.
Like because I don't track. I don't know. I don't track it. Some of it comes out of the business. I pull money whenever I need to, and there's like they literally can't tell me month to month what their expenses are, and it's like if you don't know what you're living on right now, how are you going to know how many assets you're going to need in order to produce that similar amount of income in the future whenever you go to retire?
Yeah, and not surprisingly, the three of us are nerding out on the financial side of this. But when we talk about building a transfer-ready practice, can I ask one or both of you to dwell on the on the non-financial stuff for a little bit?
Well, Tom, I mean, I think, his point with culture,
Yes, yes, that's a
it's
good point.
culture, it's systems, it's when people like, and I think the emotional aspect is oftentimes lost with like, what is the emotional aspect in relation to your brand as a business owner? When people look at your brand, do they get, and I'm not just talking about the people that you serve or the pets that you serve in your area. I'm talking about the people that are in your business. I'm talking about the vendors. Like, do your vendors like coming to you? Like, Tom and I have similar things in the financial advisor arena, where we have vendors and they come in and they buy us lunch and they, try to get us to sell their product and that kind of thing. Like, we have the same stuff as you guys have a lot of the time when it comes to that. And, I'm like, do they like coming? My thought process is if I have somebody like a vendor coming to our office to present to our team, are they excited to come see us?
Yeah,
Right now, not are they excited to come see us because we're going to be selling their product or because they want us to sell their product, but are they coming because they want to see Hallie? Are they coming because they want to see Jason? Are they coming because they
yeah,
want to hang out with Tom? And I think the emotional aspect of your brand can oftentimes play into the valuation because your profits are going to reflect the emotional aspects of your business.
yeah. Do you, in your guys' business, and I mean, we're not intended to be sort of a commercial, but I'm just wondering, do you guys get into that part of it, sort of the culture building and the people building,
All
or
the time.
you do, eh?
All the
Yeah.
time. We not only that, but we have probably three consultants that we meet with pretty regularly. And Tom and I meet with one guy individually because it's like we're trying to understand our own mental models and how we might be doing things that hold us back or hold the team back. And we're constantly trying to just because again, the business should be serving everybody, right? It should be
Yeah,
serving us. It should be serving the community. Like everyone should benefit from the organization. It's not a winner loser organization. It's always a winner 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 organization. And so
yeah,
having that mentality oftentimes will then make it transfer ready. I mean, when you have good culture and you have good people in place and you have good processes in place, then it's going to be real easy for someone to come in and look and if they hang out with your staff for an hour and a half and they get the vibe of that place, like that buyer should sit there and go, wow, like this is actually like this is something different, right? There's a
it
taste
does
to.
it does help if it's profitable.
Well, that's going to be but if you're doing those things,
Yeah,
it's going to be profitable.
yeah, it's true.
Like,
It's true. This is a chicken and egg problem that I don't have an answer to, but seems to come
yeah,
up in many of my conversations. It's like, does great culture lead to profitability, or does profitability lead to great culture, right? It's a lot
yeah, it's
easier.
like, yes,
I was joking. I often joke with my friend Danny Radwin from Ready Vet Go. I often joke with her. I was like, it's much more fun to work in a profitable business than a non than one that's not making money. It's
100%,
way more fun. It's way more fun. You can be
100%.
Amen.
more generous, more generous, more technology, more equipment, more time off, more staff, more everything when
Th-
it's
But, but,
profitable.
but people undervalue even things like reward programs. Like if you have proper reward programs implemented in the business where there's an objective metric tied to a direct result that an employee has effectuation on,
Yeah,
then that effect they now have clear direction as far as what they need to do. And if they're doing the thing, then it's increasing the profits and a moving thing. And then you're rewarding them monetarily or otherwise. And so
yeah,
that there's this reward system that is it's not a if then, it's kind of a circle, right? It's everything's feeding itself and then
yeah.
it's a
Builds
flywheel.
builds a. I was just gonna say it builds a bit of a flywheel for sure. Okay, let's talk about avoiding deal killers, choosing the right buyer and planning for post sale. Here, I'm thinking about um, uh, so Tom, you talked already a bit about, um, selling to corporates, and people have been watching my work over the last couple of years. I've been beating the drum that um, now is the time for a renaissance of independent practices, and I've been doing that work with Matt Saloy from BMG. Um, Maybe here you could tell us a good fairy tale and a nightmare story again, um, from your own client experience. One where uh, things where people had a plan, they worked the plan, and they exited, and sort of, you know, Cinderella story, and one where, um, uh, you know, I, I I don't like focusing on like people's misfortune, but there's lessons to be learned there. So maybe one that didn't go so well.
I think on that, I'll let CJ talk on the one that's the fairy tale. I'll talk about the one that's a little bit the misfortune here, just to get that one out of the way. Depending on the business, because I will tell you that this past previous generation is a huge struggle still till this day. Being a solo vet and having the business dependent on you as the owner and the veterinarian, your options are very limited. And there are some groups that are out there that have gone out and they are willing to partner up, create these relationships, and a lot of it, I think, too, is where going to coaching, and I think this is kind of a plug right here real fast, that like going to coaching, we start learning where our own mental defenses and the things that we put up, the barriers and defenses that we design that can actually hurt our relationship. So like this wasn't just on the company that had bought it, but it also was on the person who sold his practice. Uh,
Mhm.
but it got around to it to where, the business was sold. There's a good value that came about it. Things were working okay for a little while. Based off of the way the practice was, there was a difference of opinion on how the practice should be run, and the business model that was changed into something new that was for the area was unsupporting for what they actually provided. And
Mhm.
progressively over time, over a year, over 2 years, revenue started declining in that veterinary practice. And, the owner with the idea of being able to get out of it within about 4 years, 3 years was the first trigger. 4 years was based off of the current market valuation of the business. So he could sell the other part in 3 years for the original valuation or get the market value at the time of the fourth year. And basically got to a part where the business changed so much and the guy is now in his, early 70s, and they basically pulled out from that whole operation, and now he has
Yeah.
the reins of the business again. And now it's to the part where his plan that he was hoping to peel back and not have to worry about that too much has dramatically changed, and now he's trying to figure out how to pick the pieces back up to make something of it. And
Yeah.
as we get older, it's harder to run that business. So that's a scenario where it didn't work out so well. And I think, just to add in here one last thought on that, there's always this ambition of selling to another veterinarian or another employee. And just for everyone who is listening to this, the timing isn't to try to find someone you're ready to sell. Like, you should be actively trying to find someone over time to
To
plug
grow with
into your
them.
business.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to help yourself too. Like, you have to be willing to put in the work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, there's some people, they say that they are and then they don't do it, and then they have to go to like the what's plan B because
Yeah.
plan A didn't work out. And that was part of this whole equation too. It just conversations for years. Let's find a vet, buy the business. That didn't happen, and eventually it got sold corporate, and then that, everything fell apart.
Mm. I There's so much to learn from that, and frankly, like to me, it sort of creates this like, oh gosh, like what's my succession plan? Have I thought about it early enough? Am I thinking long term enough? You know, do, do do I know where I'm going to be 6 to 10 years from now, where I want to be 6 to 10 years from now? In that story, it's sort of like please don't let me get to 70 and have to figure it out.
Well, and I think the first lesson there for that particular person that's from that story is just what we're talking about today, why it's never too early to start
Correct.
planning, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
more often than not, when we talk about avoiding deal killers or choosing the wrong buyer or not planning for a good well enough for post sale, oftentimes it's because of rushing,
Yeah.
right? So I think
Yeah.
of two words when I read that what's on the screen here, I think of two words. I think of rushing because maybe we didn't plan. Oh wait, now I need a plan. Now I'm going to rush and try to make something happen. And so it's very hard to make a good decision in when you're rushed. And then the second thing I think of is patterns. Like so if you're looking if a corporation comes in and wants to buy you, their history is going to mean a lot, right? What kind of pattern do they have when they buy practices? Is there
Right.
longevity? Have they been around for 6 months and this is some group that cobbled together a bunch of money and now they're starting to acquire? Or is this a group that's been around a little while and they can show you examples of how they kept the culture the same, how they were able to implement better processes and maybe help the people get better themselves, right? They were able to add infrastructure that maybe perhaps you can't implement yourself because you're one person, but there's a company that maybe can add that infrastructure. I think
Yeah.
choosing the right buyer is a big deal. And then if you're looking at succession planning, if you're looking at being able to transition, so on the other side, the glory, the other side of that story that you said about what a success story, right? Because that's we just talked about the bad one, but the good one is like I think of a person who corporate came to him and said there are a couple corporations that came to him, gave him like a $6.5 million valuation, ready to write him a check right now. And he was really upset because he's like he's still young too. He's actually young. He's got a good another 10, 15 years to work. Um,
Yeah.
but he really wanted to transition internally. And so, he has people inside the business already who are ready to not just ready, but like they themselves know that there's a deficit in their belief and in their thinking and and how they need to operate. And so they're taking a good 10 years to basically run this succession plan. And in the
That's
meantime,
great.
they're putting together things in place now. So every year there's a milestone that they're going to hit, and everyone has to grow. The business isn't going to grow unless the people grow. And so they've been able to create an infrastructure. I've been working on this case since probably it's been about a year now that I've been working with this person, and we're just now finalizing everything where there's specific metrics, specific things that are in place that as those people who are going to own the business grow personally and professionally at the same time the results that they have in their personal and professional lives are going to have a direct reflection on the profits of the business. What does that do? It pushes the business value up. So this person who could sell their business for 6 million today is actually going to sell it for more over the next 10 years to the people that are going to buy the practice from him over time. And so
And I'll
having
probably have a heck of a time doing it.
what it, he I can't like so there was a meeting that they had as a
CJ,
go ahead.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
no, we're
I'm gonna
we're
ask
at the end.
yeah, I'm gonna ask you to
Sorry.
wrap it up. No, it's cool. It's cool. I want to keep this is here. This is what happens every one of these things. It's like, oh, we're gonna
I
leave
know we
time at
gotta
the
go.
end. It's good,
You're good.
and we're gonna end up timing out. But I I do I love ending on a high note of somebody who's young, has a plan, um, could exit now, but is going to work the plan and transition internally. Okay, so we covered off how early exit planning improves current decision making. We talked about some of the common financial pitfalls. We talked about strategies to align personal and business performance, steps to building a practice that's attractive, and identifying elements that affect exit success. Um, with apologies, we've timed out. I want to make sure that we're respectful of people's times. And however, um, uh, people can find us at vetbooks.com. CJ and Tom are also easy to find at Florida Veterinary Advisors. We're all on LinkedIn. And if you do have questions and want to continue the conversation outside of this, please seek us out and try and we'd be happy to engage. CJ, Tom, Thank you very, very much for your time, the conversation. I could talk about this stuff all day. I love this stuff. And the industry is lucky to have people like you working to help practitioners be even more successful. So really appreciative of the time today. Thank you.
Thank you for having us on. We always enjoy hanging out with you and getting to chat about this stuff. So
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, CJ.
see
And
you
thank you to
later.
everybody
Good day.
else who spent thanks to everybody else who spent their valuable time with us today. Hopefully this was valuable. If you have other topics that you'd like for us to cover, shoot me a line. I'm here to be curious. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.